In this video, I'm going to be reviewing what a function is. So I'm going to begin with the definition and then explain visually what something that is a function looks like and what something that is not a function looks like. So the definition is, we say that a function f assigns a unique value to each number in a set of numbers called the domain. So the key word here is unique. So we're assigning some numbers to each number in the domain. So the word unique means that when we assign a number, we are assigning exactly one. Okay, so I know this definition is, a bit abstract, but let's see if we can visualize this a little bit by drawing a picture. Okay, so I want to draw a diagram of something that is a function and something that is not a function. All right, so I'm going to draw this circular shape, and within the circular shape, I'm going to put some elements. So 1, this dot is going to represent the number 2, this dot's going to represent 3. And then I'm going to have another circular shape, and within this circular shape, I'll put 2 dots. And let's say that one of these is the number 5, and one of these is the number 7. Okay, so now I'm going to say that the numbers in this first circle on the left, these represent everything that's in the domain. So I need to assign a value to each of these numbers that's in the domain. So to 1, to 2, and to 3. And I'm going to say that all the possible outputs lie in this second circle. Either 7 or 5 are going to be the possible outputs. All right, so let's just say that 1 gets assigned to 7, and then 2 gets assigned to 5, and let's say that 3 also gets assigned to 5. So this is a totally fine way to establish a function right here. Every single element in the domain has been assigned to exactly one value. So it's fine if something like 5 corresponds to more than one thing in the domain. There can be different values in the domain, like 2 and 3, that both get assigned to the same thing. Okay, so in this diagram I've just drawn, let's more explicitly say what the domain is and what the range is. So the domain is all of the inputs. In fact, let me write that below. Let me write that definition. The domain is all the inputs. And in this diagram right here, the inputs were 1, 2, and 3. So we have a word for all the outputs that we get, and we call that the range. So the range is all of the outputs that we actually achieve. Okay, so in my picture, in my diagram here, the range, all of the outputs that we actually got were, well, we got 5 and we got 7. We got both of those values. All right, so let me just highlight this. So the domain is all the inputs, and the range is all the outputs, and now we have all of those. So let's give an example of something that is not a function. All right, so again, I'm going to have, oh no, I don't want to highlight. Let's just do a marker. Okay, that's too thick. One sec. Oh, that's too thin. Hold on. I think I can get this now. Okay, so I'll have a circle. Okay, there we go. All right. So I have my inputs 1, 2, and 3, just like I had before. And now I'll have a circle that represents my outputs. So I'll have 5 and 7. So this time I'm going to have, so again, I'll have the 1 go to the 7. I'll have the 2 go to the 7. And 3, I'll have that go to the 7 and also to the 5. But if I do that, I have a problem. The input 3 got assigned to 2 outputs, and that is not allowed to happen. So one input can't have more than one output. When that happens, it is not a function. So it's fine if there's one output like 5 that corresponds to 2 different inputs, or even more than 2 different inputs. But I can't have one input that is assigned to more than one output. If I do, it's not a function. Okay, so let's also look at graphs of things that are functions and something that is not a function. So I'll also have something that is not a function here. Okay, so let's start off with something that is a function. Okay, so I'm going to make my xy axes. Let me put one here as well. So an xy axes. So let me draw something that is a function. Okay, so something like this, for example, will be a function. Graphically, the way I can tell is a function passes the vertical line test. So the vertical line test. And the vertical line test says that any vertical line crosses the graph at most. So at most once. So it cannot cross the graph more than one time. That would be bad. So if I draw some vertical lines here, if I draw this vertical line, it crosses the graph once, and that's totally fine. If I draw another vertical line here, it crosses the graph just once, and that's fine. And it's not hard to see that no matter what vertical line I were to draw on this graph, it's always going to cross the graph exactly one time, and that's just fine to pass the vertical line test. Okay, so what is something, so maybe both of these work, so let me put smiley faces on both of these vertical lines that I just drew. So what about something that is not a function? So there are a bunch of examples I could draw, so I'm just going to draw like a sideways parabola type shape. So if I had something like this, let me draw some vertical lines. So first, if I draw this vertical line, this one's just fine because it crossed the graph 0 times. And 0 is definitely not more than once, so that's fine. This line was good. But there is a line that I could draw that would be bad. In fact, there's many. I could draw something like this vertical line. And that vertical line crosses the graph more than once, and that's bad. To pass the vertical line test, any vertical line that I draw needs to cross the graph at most once. So if I can find even one vertical line like this that crosses my graph more than one time, that is bad. So this fails the vertical line test, which means that this second graph is not a function. So going back to our learning goals, at this point we have reviewed the definition of a function and looked at graphically what functions look like and what things that are not functions look like.